You don't expect to get blamed for stealing someone's fiancée when you barely speak to them. You definitely don't expect that accusation to wreck a wedding, blow up a family, and leave you smack in the middle of a disaster you didn't create. But that's exactly what happened. And what happened next shocked everyone, and changed our family forever. My name's Grace, I'm 21, and I'd been estranged from my family for a while. Not because of some dramatic fallout, but because being around them always felt like trying to speak a different language in a room where no one bothers to listen. My sister, Ava, is 27 and the golden child of the family. She's always been the picture of perfection, honors student, future lawyer, favorite daughter. Me? I'm the opposite. The overlooked one. The one who always got nods and polite smiles but never warmth. I drifted away during college. I chose to spend spring breaks at my grandparents' lake house rather than come home. It was just easier. We never really clicked, Ava and I. Our parents didn't help much either. They bonded over books and brunches, while I talked about coding, anime, or travel and got silence in return. So when Ava got engaged to Mason, 27, no one was surprised that I wasn't involved. We barely saw each other. But things took a strange turn last Christmas when Mason joined us for dinner. And for once, I didn't feel invisible. Mason actually asked me questions. About college. Travel. My work. Nothing deep, but he looked at me when I spoke. He listened. Not out of flirtation, just simple human decency. But Ava noticed. Her eyes burned across the table like lasers. She didn't say much that night, until later, when she pulled me aside and hissed. I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to steal Mason. I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She doubled down. Accused me of flirting. Said I was too friendly. I told her she was being paranoid. I didn't take it seriously, but maybe I should have. Because after that night, things changed. She avoided me like I had some disease. My parents started giving me odd looks whenever Mason was around. And then came the real punch. My grandparents called me to say Ava was getting married in May. I hadn't heard a word from Ava. No invite. No announcement. Nothing. Still, I waited. I told myself maybe she'd forgotten, or was stressed with planning. That somehow, maybe, I'd still be included. But weeks passed. Then one night I got a call. Ava. Her voice was cool, distant. I'm not inviting you to the wedding, she said. Because Mason has feelings for you. And it would make things uncomfortable. I blinked. Laughed. I thought it was a prank. It wasn't. I told her to have a nice wedding and hung up. I thought that was the end. But then came the rehearsal dinner, and what happened there turned everything upside down. Mason refused to marry her. In front of everyone. And it was because of me. What followed was chaos. Crying, begging, and the most audacious request my sister has ever made. She wanted me to lie, for her. To save her relationship. After months of being accused, shamed, and ignored, she wanted me to clean it all up. But I was done being the family scapegoat. And when I finally told her no, everything fell apart. What happened next changed all of our lives. When my dad called me 7 times in a row, I knew something had exploded. He's not the type to double text, let alone blow up my phone. I was halfway through a paper in my tiny apartment, curled up with my laptop and a cup of green tea, when the 8th call came through. I answered with a sigh, ready to tell him I wasn't going to the wedding. That I had no part in this circus. But his voice was shaking. Grace. You have to come. Right now. That alone was strange. My father never begged. He was always more iceberg than man. But his voice, it cracked. It's about Ava and Mason, he said. Just please. Come. I didn't even get to say no before my mom called next, crying. Not sniffling, sobbing. Your sister needs you, she said between gasps, like she'd completely forgotten the months of silence, the absence of an invite, the way they all looked at me like I was radioactive. Then Ava called. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want? She was crying too, but Messier, unhinged. Mason, he won't do it, she said. He asked where you were. When I told him you weren't invited, he said he couldn't marry me. Not after what we did to you. I felt frozen. According to Ava, Mason had shown up at the rehearsal dinner like any other groom. Until he realized I wasn't there. Then, in front of their friends and both families, he asked her why. When she explained, when she said it was because of his supposed feelings for me, he went quiet. Then he stood up and told everyone he couldn't marry someone who treated her own sister like that. He said I was just like Mom and Dad, Ava whispered through tears. He said he couldn't be part of a family that cuts people out for existing. And now she had a plan. I need you to come, she pleaded. Tell Mason it was all a misunderstanding. That you didn't want to come. That I didn't exclude you. Just say it was your idea, please. He still trusts you. I sat in silence. Her desperation filled the line like static. After months of being painted as some man-stealing villain, now she wanted me to rescue her. I let the silence linger until it felt like a wall between us. Then, as calm as I could manage, I said, No. You're dealing with the consequences of your choices, I told her. I won't lie to clean up your mess. Her response was a scream of frustration, a desperate string of apologies and excuses. But I'd already hung up. I powered off my phone, made myself a fresh cup of tea, and stared out the window. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat in that stillness and realized something that stopped me cold. Mason had seen it. He saw the way they treated me. He noticed what they never did, the absence, the dismissal, the quiet cruelty. And without me saying a single word, he'd drawn his own conclusions. And acted on them. That night, my phone was flooded with voicemails. Messages from family I hadn't heard from in years. Friends of Ava. Even people I barely knew, all suddenly desperate to get me to fix the situation. But I didn't. For once, I didn't fix what I didn't break. And Mason? He went silent too. He didn't call Ava back. Didn't answer my parents. My grandparents said he told his family the wedding was off, and it was final. The girl who accused me, who exiled me, was now the one left behind. And for the first time in a long time, I slept like a rock. Because I wasn't the problem. They just finally ran out of ways to pretend I was. The morning after the wedding imploded, I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide anymore. The voicemails kept pouring in, every one of them dripping with guilt, rage, or denial. My mother left one sobbing, asking how I could do this to my sister. My dad's was shorter, just angry silence, followed by a terse, "Call me back. Now." My aunt, who hadn't texted me in years, sent a long paragraph about how one fight shouldn't ruin everything. But what they didn't understand was, it wasn't one fight. It was every fight I had to have alone. Every dinner where I sat silent. Every time they looked right through me. And now that Mason had pulled the curtain back, they were scrambling to contain the fallout. But I wasn't cleaning up anymore. I was telling the story. You see, this wedding disaster wasn't born out of thin air. It was the climax of a decades-long pattern. And it started when I was a kid. When I was 16, I had a panic attack during a class presentation. My throat closed up, my hands shook so hard I dropped my notes, and someone in the back snickered. I remember blinking through tears at the blurry faces in front of me, just praying the floor would open up and swallow me whole. When I came home and told my mom, she didn't ask if I was okay. She just muttered, "You're being dramatic," and told me to toughen up. My dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Life doesn't stop for nerves," he said. "Deal with it." That was the first time I realized I was completely alone in my own house. Ava, of course, had never experienced that kind of dismissal. She was the debate queen, prom committee chair, the girl everyone adored. When she had a bad day, the world stopped. When I had a breakdown, I got told to suck it up. I tried, for years, to explain what I was going through. The anxiety, the insomnia, the feeling that I was broken in a way no one wanted to acknowledge. But they wouldn't hear it. Mental health was just another excuse to them. Something weak people used to justify laziness. That summer after high school, I had to beg to see a therapist. My dad laughed when I asked. My mom said, "You don't need help. You need discipline." But I went anyway. Secretly. It was the first time someone actually listened. Dr. Alston, she was kind, blunt, and not easily swayed. She told me I wasn't crazy. That I had a real condition. Social anxiety disorder. Something that explained every failed interaction, every night I spent crying alone, every time I couldn't breathe in a crowd. That diagnosis changed everything. It didn't fix me overnight. But it gave me a name for the monster I'd been fighting. And slowly, I started building boundaries. Quiet ones, at first. I stopped going home for every holiday. I stayed at school more. I spent breaks at my grandparents' house, where it was quieter, kinder. And not once, did anyone from my immediate family ask why. They let me disappear, and never looked back. Years later, Ava's insane accusation that I was trying to steal her fiancé made more sense. Not because it was true, God, no, but because it followed the pattern. The narrative they'd always clung to. I was the difficult one. The unstable one. The one who didn't fit. Ava couldn't comprehend Mason being kind to me. So she twisted it into betrayal. But Mason didn't play along. And that was the first time someone saw the truth without me screaming for it. I realized something else that week. I had spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who had already decided I didn't deserve it. I kept coming back, hoping for a crumb of empathy. A nod. A seat at the table. But the table had always been full of people who didn't want me there. And now? Now that they needed something? Now they remembered my name. I wasn't falling for it again. Ava didn't just lose Mason. She lost the ability to paint me as the villain. And that loss cut deeper than I think she was ready for. It started with eggs. Splatters on my windshield. A streak down the hood. At first, I thought it was just some bored teenagers messing around. That is, until I noticed the handwriting. A neon pink sticky note tucked under the wiper blade, scrawled in handwriting I'd seen 1,000 times before. "You deserve it." I stared at it for a long time. Ava had officially lost it. For the next 2 weeks, it escalated. Sugar in my mailbox. My apartment door covered in passive-aggressive notes, some sarcastic, some outright cruel. One morning I walked out to find all 4 of my tires slashed. Not punctured. Slashed. With a note taped to the side mirror. "Bet you'll stay away now." And yet my parents? Silent. Even when I sent them photos. Even when I texted a picture of Ava trying to break into my building, caught clearly on my doorbell cam. Nothing. The only reply I got from my mom was, "She's just upset, Grace. Don't escalate it." I stared at that message for 10 minutes, not sure if I wanted to scream or laugh. But I didn't do either. Instead, I got smart. Thanks to some very wise strangers online, I'd already installed security cameras months earlier, front door, parking lot, even inside my stairwell. Every petty note, every spray-painted insult, every attempt to sabotage me, I caught it all. I went to a lawyer. She didn't blink. "This isn't family drama," she said. "This is criminal harassment." We gathered the evidence. Photos. Video. Screenshots of messages Ava had sent mutual friends, claiming I was trying to destroy her life. One where she literally said, "She should have just stayed invisible. But she always has to ruin everything." By the end of the week, my lawyer delivered a cease and desist to Ava's doorstep. 3 days later, her attorney tried to negotiate. If I dropped the charges, she'd pay for the damages. Offer a public apology. Maybe even some therapy. Anything to avoid court. But it wasn't about money anymore. It was about accountability. We went to court. The judge didn't go easy on her. attempted break-in, harassment, vandalism. The video of her keying my car was especially damning. She got a restraining order, mandatory therapy, and a suspended sentence of 1 year. One more stunt, and she'd be facing jail time. That was the first time I saw my parents show any real emotion. But it wasn't concern for me. It was shame. They didn't care about what Ava had done. They cared that people knew. That their friends at church or their neighbors at the country club might ask questions. "You're really going to destroy your sister's life over a few pranks?" my dad snapped after the hearing. "No," I said calmly. "She destroyed it all on her own. I just documented it." That civil case came next. She had to pay restitution for emotional distress, lost income from my freelance gigs she torpedoed with her smear campaign, and cover property damage. My lawyer even included a clause barring my parents from acting as messengers for Ava ever again. No more guilt by proxy. No more. Just talk to her, she's your sister. It wasn't just a legal victory. It was a personal one. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. Ava and my parents had finally run out of ways to rewrite the story. They were just characters in a script they couldn't control anymore. And I was finally free to live in a story of my own choosing. A month after the court ruling, I moved. New apartment. New phone. New life. I chose a building with 24/7 surveillance, underground parking, and a doorman who doesn't blink when someone asks to. "Just pop upstairs real quick." I shut down my old social media. Changed my number. Even set up a private email just for my new clients, ones who understood what had happened and stood by me. And yet, even with all the chaos behind me, I couldn't relax. Because there was still one thing tying me to them. One last connection I hadn't severed. My inheritance. Ava didn't know about it. Neither did my parents. But before my grandmother passed, she had added my name to a quiet little investment account, one she'd built over decades. A safety net, she called it. "In case you ever decide to stop saving people who don't deserve it." She knew. Long before I did. That account wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to give me options. To erase old obligations. To take back what they'd quietly stolen under the guise of family loyalty. I called my lawyer again. We used the settlement funds, plus the remainder of my inheritance, to do something they never saw coming. We bought out my parents' mortgage. Then served them a legal eviction notice. Because what they didn't realize was, after years of covering their bills, co-signing their loans, and keeping them afloat, I had enough financial leverage to legally own half the house. They laughed when the papers came. Said I was being vindictive. Said I was ruining what was left of the family. But the truth is, I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped pretending I wasn't drowning to keep everyone else afloat. My final move wasn't vengeance. It was liberation. I sold the house 2 months later. Every dime I made went into my business. I'd opened a wellness and mental health consultancy, a small startup that partners with universities to provide real, affordable therapy to students like the girl I used to be. The girl who had no support. Who was told to toughen up instead of being heard. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm building something with meaning. Not just for me, but for every person who's ever been made to feel small in a place they should have felt safe. As for Ava? Last I heard, she moved back in with our parents, into a smaller condo after they sold the house. Her social media's gone dark. She's not speaking to anyone who's sided with me. Which, it turns out, is most of the extended family. And me? I'm done looking back. I'm done explaining. I spent my whole life shrinking myself to fit a version of family that didn't include me. Now I'm expanding. Quietly. Boldly. On my own terms. They may have tried to erase me. But I've never been more visible.